This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What up? We got a good one on tap for you today. It's Jonathan Von Tobel flying solo once again. We will hear from Stormy Buonantony. She has failed to update us on what is going on in her travels. I would say across the world. I mean, she's quite literally across the world, but she's only been to two places, the Philippines and in Tokyo, Japan. We finally, though, hear from Stormy Buonantony. We'll have a visual update on what Stormy has been doing while out there in another part of the world. Quite entertaining, I will say, to let you know how the vacation is going. We can't show you one of the videos that she sent us from last night or early this morning. And to let you know how out of it she is, I texted her. I think it was in our group chat. It might have been on the side. But either way, I texted her. It was about like 6 o'clock in the morning today for us. And she responded with, "Why are you up right now?" My response was, because it's 6 o'clock and the world is moving. It's not like 2 a.m. where you are. And I'm sure you're drunk on whatever it is. So that is going to be fun. But the more important things that we have in store for you today, a lot of baseball, a lot of basketball, and a little bit more. So let's not waste any more time, crew, if you would.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
We are inching ever closer to Indianapolis. A reminder, I'll be out there for Thursday and Friday on Radio Row. The show will be live from Indy in the Final Four. So we'll give you an update on what's going on with the college basketball numbers. A little bit of movement here and there, side totals, and we'll get our full breakdowns on these games as well, and our first dive into most outstanding player for the Final Four. We actually had a little bit of this on the Pod to the Futures podcast, so if you want to check that out wherever you get your podcast, I assume it's going to be up today. Wyatt's around here doing something, and I assume at some point that'll be up. But either way, we'll have a little bit of an update on that in the Final Four and our breakdowns and best bets as we get closer to the NCAA Tournament. Also on deck for today, last night, the dogs were barking at Major League Baseball, had some big ones cash, including the Colorado Rockies, among some others. We'll see if they can continue to bark today. And speaking of one of those dogs, the Cleveland Guardians, our guy, our mid-major maestro, our Guardians fan, the only dude I know that is from Cleveland, Adam Burke, will be with us. We'll get his thoughts on the NCAA Tournament, maybe a little on the Crown as well, which gets started tomorrow. Speaking of, Bruce Marshall is going to be with us too, get his thoughts on those. But of course, the Guardians, Major League Baseball, and more with Adam when he joins us coming up here in 30 minutes. But we start the show near and dear to my heart. The Association, an interesting game last night for multiple reasons, but an MVP Monday as we look back to what was a monster day for both Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Victor Wembanyama. What a night for these two. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 47 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a potential game winner last night wiped away by a push-off foul. It was a push-off, so he deserved to be called for it. And Victor Wembanyama, 41 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, 1 steal, 17 to 27 from the floor, 3 of 6 from three-point range, posted a double-double in just 8 minutes of play just last night. Two guys that are vying for an award. Victor Wembanyama has been publicly stumping for it, but Shai last night was absolutely brilliant, especially in the fourth quarter where he gives them 11 points. Before we get to the odds, and right now, actually, we can throw them up, minus 300 for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Victor Wembanyama, plus 225. It is a two-horse race at this point right now. An argument to be made that Luka Doncic is still mispriced, but we can talk about that coming up in a couple of minutes. Let's hear from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. First and foremost, the fourth quarter was very strong for Shai. Kind of took over the game. He was asked, what do you do in the fourth quarter? What was the mindset? He said, just needed to go and make plays.
A lot of times I try to, let the game come to me. I try to just, play within the game, do whatever the game's telling me. And, tonight I just felt like I needed to go take it. I needed to go be aggressive. I needed to go make plays. I need to score the ball specifically. I feel like now, just coincidentally, I feel like it just wasn't our best night shooting. And they got hot in the fourth quarter. And I just wanted to be aggressive and leave it all out there and see where that took us.
Fourth quarter, overtime. Shai's also in the running for Clutch Player of the Year, and for very good reason. He does it again last night, potentially with a dagger when you're looking at the shot that was waved off. But what he has done so far for this team in clutch time so far this year, averaging 6.5 points. Now, that doesn't sound like that much, but a reminder, clutch time is game within 5 points, 5 or fewer minutes left to go, and shooting 51.5% from the floor overall, averaging about a half rebound and just about an assist per game in clutch time. Shai has been absolutely brilliant. But the question now becomes most valuable player. A lot of voters would say that the race for the 1 seed will ultimately dictate what is happening. Well, we heard Victor Wembanyama publicly stump for himself when he was asked about it the other day. Why should you win MVP? Shea was asked about this yesterday.
I think it's good for the league. I think it's good chatter. It gives people something to talk about. There's a lot of good players in this league, and a lot of guys in the conversation because of that.
There's been chattering on behalf of other players. Would you like to chatter on behalf of yourself?
Nah, I'm good. Thanks for asking, though. But yeah, I'm good. I'll let my game do the talking.
And the game speaks very well. His usage rate of 36%, right in line with where it was last year, but the efficiency is off the charts. 134.2 points per 100 shot attempts for Shea. That ranks in the 98th percentile, well ahead of where he was last year. And, of course, a very solid career high for him should this hold, and it likely will with less than 10 games left to go. It seems like this is going to be one where maybe we're talking just a little bit too much about this. We are going to get a Tim Bontemps straw poll and a final one at that coming soon. It might be coming tomorrow. I don't know when, but it's going to be dropping at some point, as it was hinted by Bontemps on their most recent episode of their podcast. It'll give us an idea of where we're at for this race. And the question just becomes, how do you bet this and what do you do? There's really not much you can do at this point right now. You could sit there and grab Victor Wembanyama at plus 225, but folks, we talked about this last week. He was 25-1 to win this award less than a week ago when Luka Doncic was sitting as the second choice right above him. You could grab plus 225 and the straw poll comes out, and the gap between him and Shea is a chasm, not just a small gap that he can't overcome over the last 8 games or so, and so you really have nothing to do here. I think at the end of the day, there's probably a case to be made that Shea is somewhat cheap, given the point of the season where we're at, and given the fact that those who view the tiebreaker as the race for the 1 seed is probably a race that the Spurs can't win, only because there's another thing that has to happen. San Antonio has to win out, sure, which is perfectly plausible if you look at the rest of their schedule and just the way that they're playing. They're at the Warriors next up. The remaining games on their schedule, they finish at a road trip at the Clippers, at the Nuggets, home for the last 4 games of the season, Philadelphia, Portland, Dallas, and Denver again. There's some tough opponents on that schedule, but the majority at home, it wouldn't be shocking if they were to win every game, maybe lose one here or there. They also need the Thunder to lose, and the Thunder probably aren't going to be doing that, at least losing enough for you to make up a 2.5-game gap. So there is a strong argument to be made that minus 300 is somewhat cheap for the MVP race at this point right now. We'll get more into this coming up in about 5 minutes from now on the other side. We'll talk about Joe Mazzulla and the Coach of the Year race as well, where we're at for those odds. I think we feel pretty good. About a month ago, we added Joe Mazzulla at 8-1 to win Coach of the Year, and he's been up there as well. But let's talk about some of the top games tonight, because we do have some good ones on the card, and we have a lot of great guests today, so we want to make sure that we give our fair share for some of these contests. Let's start with Phoenix on the road against Orlando as part of the massive card we have today. Magic in a pretty interesting spot. Orlando opens up as a 2.5-point favorite, total of 224.5. Suns in a really bad scheduling spot today. 3rd game in 4 nights, 2nd leg of a back-to-back for Phoenix. You see the market kind of sitting at 2, some spots popping up at 1.5. Injury report, we don't know yet for the Phoenix Suns. We'll double-check to see if that's popped up here over the last couple of minutes as we get these updates now every 15 minutes. But for Orlando, no Anthony Black, Jonathan Isaac, Franz Wagner, as we know. The question becomes, is this the time to try to reach out and catch the falling knife that is the Orlando Magic? We've talked about this a lot. Just yesterday, we brought up the Magic, Jamal Mosley, Desmond Bane, the fact that this team seems to hate one another for some reason, the fact that they can't cover these games. They've lost 7 out of the last 8. This is maybe a low point when you're talking about a power rating for the market to say that Orlando is maybe worse than Phoenix in terms of power rating, even though the scheduling spot is much better for Orlando. This does kind of seem like a really good opportunity to buy low on the Magic today, despite the fact that they come in here on this stretch of playing extremely, extremely poor basketball. We'll file that away for a little bit later when we get to best bets. But Orlando, I think situationally, especially with these 1.5 starting to appear, we'll double check on the injury report as well for Phoenix, but might be an ugly hold your nose and dive in with the Orlando Magic later tonight. Also a poor scheduling spot for the Pistons tonight, too. Also a 2nd leg of a back-to-back and a 3rd game in 4 nights for Detroit. They are a 2.5-point favorite, total of 220.5. What makes this a little unique is last night the injury report wasn't particularly great for them, and so now some guys come back. Might be offsetting what you saw yesterday, but the Pistons against the Raptors, you see it now up to 3.5, totals 220.5. Favorable injury report for them. Duran is probable, as is Tobias Harris, and Duncan Robinson, Have to figure out what's going to happen with Karis LeVert and Marcus Sasser. You could maybe convince me that if Brandon Ingram and Colin Murray Boyles, are going to play for Toronto, that you can catch Detroit in a bad scheduling spot and stay inside of that number if you're Toronto. but you need clarity on the injury report. But Raptors definitely worth circling here today against Detroit if you want to catch them in this situation. And one of the big boys, do we call it a finals preview? I guess anything can happen. Knicks on the road against the Houston Rockets. Miles McBride is not going to play. Landry Shamet is out as well. And the Knicks are 1.5-point favorites on the road against the Houston Rockets. We'll call them the Western Conference Magic because Houston is another team where Ime Udoka's only strategy at this point is to call a huddle and call his team a bunch of a-holes and then move on and do no real coaching. If you look at their stretch that they have been on from a cover standpoint, since March 11th, they only have 2 games in which they have covered. They win and cover against New Orleans. That snaps an 0-4 ATS slide for the Houston Rockets. We've covered the fact that this team has been abysmal in the half court, how bad this has been offensively. They're grasping at straws, trying to find any sort of recourse when it comes to their offense. And some of that has been adding Reed Sheppard to the mix, but Sheppard, of course, has a target at his back defensively that a lot of teams have gone after. Knicks at a 1.5-point favorite. You can make the argument here that maybe this is a low point for Houston, getting a 1.5 against the New York Knicks at home. New York, they've lost their last 2. They are on the midst of a road trip. They went to Charlotte, lost that game, failed to cover. They lost at OKC, 111-100. They have failed to cover 3 straight and 4 out of the last 5. And if you zoom out a little bit further, Knicks have not covered consecutive games since the beginning of the beginning of the month, March 4th to March 6th. But Knicks probably the right side here against a team that we do not trust at all. I say we being me and pretty much it. My conglomerate, the imaginary one at that. But the headliner tonight is out on the West Coast. When we come back, we'll break it down. The Los Angeles Lakers are playing host to the Cleveland Cavaliers. This could be also an NBA Finals preview. We'll also get into the Coach of the Year race and more. So don't go anywhere. Money Moves. Just getting started here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Couple of bits of news for you as we are inching closer to our spot with Adam Burke is going to join us coming up in 15 minutes. We'll talk everything Major League Baseball, a little Final Four, and the Crown as well to see if he if he cares, really, I think is the question. I think Adam Burke cares about a lot of things, but maybe he doesn't care about the Crown. I'm very excited about the Crown, and hopefully Bruce Marshall will have some insight on that as well. Okay, so a couple of things here. We were talking about some of the top games in the association. One bit of news in the latest injury reports that we have for the Phoenix Suns. Orlando Magic, we talked about this. Bad situation for the Suns. 3rd game before night, 2nd leg of a back-to-back. Dylan Brooks, though, is expected back here for the Phoenix Suns, so that's going to be good news for them, as injuries have been a big part of the way this season has gone at this point right now. Have not seen Brooks since the 21st when they played the Orlando Magic. So first game back for Brooks. It's why you see this number go to 1.5 here. Spot remains the same, and also the effectiveness of Brooks offensively will be a real question. Remember, a 20.9 point per game scorer, shooting just 44% from the floor. He'll be effective defensively, one would assume. I think really the question is just what is he going to provide on offense for a Suns team that's in a tough situation when you look at the scheduling spot. So still, Magic spot there. We will see if that is it. We also get news out of the National Football League. We'll get back to the NBA really quickly. But from Adam Schefter, the saga that we have not been covering a lot here, at least on Money Moves, but is worth noting, the replacement officials that might be taking over for the 2026 season. NFL owners have approved a competition committee proposal for 1 year only, allowing the NFL officiating department to correct clear and obvious misses made by on-field officials that impact the game in the event of replacement refs for the 2026 season. That is according to Adam Schefter. That is going to be anarchy if that ultimately comes to fruition. We will see, though. So it does look like we will have a safety in place for the officials, I guess, in the case of a Hail Mary. We don't want that situation happening again, but we will have that for the 2026 season, it would seem, from what Adam Schefter. Obviously, the meeting's going on right now. I've heard a lot of stuff coming out of it. Nothing really insanely consequential, but at least one update there. All right, with that, the headliner of the night in the association, the Cleveland Cavaliers on the road against the Los Angeles Lakers. Big one here. Lakers open up as a 1.5-point favorite, total 236.5. Both teams on the second leg of a back-to-back, so we don't have updated injury reports yet. Lakers are a 2.5-point favorite now, total of 236.5. Remember, Luka Doncic suspended for the last game, which is why he did not play. Should be out there today against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Question is going to be, what does the injury report look like for Cleveland here in this game today? Last night for Cleveland, went out to Utah, 122-113 victory in that game. When you looked at the stat lines for these guys and the minutes played, Harden coming off of a 39-minute contest, so I think you have questions as whether or not he'll be available today for the Cavaliers against the Lakers. 13 points last night with 14 assists. Donovan Mitchell poured in 36 minutes as well and 34 points. So two big workloads for both Harden and Mitchell yesterday. They have been moving them around in terms of sitting them and whatnot in some of these situations. So there's a chance that one of those guys won't be available tonight against the Los Angeles Lakers. So it leaves me on the sideline here for both of these teams. I actually think you can obviously make a very strong argument for this game to go over the total potentially. We're starting to see some 236s appear. Remember, it opened 236.5, but this is going to be the headliner today, and whether or not one or two of these guys are going to sit tonight is going to be the story. So we'll keep an eye on the injury report for both of these teams, but that is going to be what we're tracking, and obviously the Lakers too, who they're going to sit, who not. But the fact that we're pretty solidly guaranteed that Luka Doncic will be available tonight for the Lakers, you can assume that he is going to be out there. Given the stretch that he is on, they're going to be in a pretty good situation. With that, really quick update here. Joe Mazzulla is making the rounds again. Now, I think Joe Mazzulla is going to win Coach of the Year, and we're sitting in a pretty good spot with the futures on him from about a month ago. I think that he's going to overtake J.B. Bickerstaff only because of the job that he has done in what is supposed to be a gap year. A team now has won 50 games. The question becomes now, I guess, does this affect whether or not folks will vote for him? He was asked about the Coach of the Year award the other day. Here's what he had to say.
The year, I was wondering what winning that award would mean to you, and if there's anything in particular that you've taken pride in accomplishing from a coaching perspective this year.
However, there's a way to make sure that the staff and the players, get the appreciation. Don't need it. I think it's a stupid award. They shouldn't have it. And it's more about the players, and it's more about the work that the staff puts in. And it's just that simple. I really don't ever want to be asked or talked about it again. It's just that dumb. So the players play. It's about them. The staff works their ass off. I'm grateful to have it.
J.B. Bickerstaff minus 300. Joe Mazzulla is 4-1 to win the award. Did this move the market? We will see. But I do think the Mazzulla is probably going to win this thing. I don't know if the market's entirely accurate on where we're at here with how these two teams are being perceived, how these two coaches are being perceived right now. Although this run from the Pistons as of late, I think, is helping out Bickerstaff's case because they have been very good without Cade Cunningham. I'd argue maybe the schedule has a little bit to do with it, but they do have some really strong wins without him. So you don't want to take away too much. Bickerstaff's done a tremendous job. With that, Final Four approaches. We're around the corner from the four teams going at it. Two contests coming up on Saturday, 3:09 p.m. Pacific time up on Saturday. Illinois taking on UConn. Let's start here. The question was, where is this going to end up? How is this going to get bet? Opened up 1.5, sitting at 2.5 now, total at 139.5. No real budge, no real movement there, and no real movement on the side. The question was, is there going to be enough support here for UConn to come in and maybe get this to go in their direction? I talked about this with Will Hill on his podcast, Should Have Bet More, at Not The Will Hill up on X. I think Illinois is the side. As we look at these a little bit more, I will go back to, again, one of the big distinct advantages that Illinois is going to have coming into this game, which is their ability to shoot the ball, the pure edge they'll have in terms of the frequency of shot attempts from beyond the arc is really going to help them out. And I know a lot of people might, especially the anti-analytic stuff, these nerds that have ruined the sport, why does it matter that you take more shots from beyond the arc? You got to hit them. Of course you have to hit them. But that edge is really going to help Illinois. They're a 35% three-point shooting team that takes 50% of their attempts from beyond the arc. They play at a slow pace, so that's going to help here in terms of UConn being able to get this thing done. And I think that this is going to be a competitive game, but you look at Illinois, the money line seems somewhat cheap to ask Illinois to win this game at about a minus 130 or so. And we'll see if it gets a little bit cheaper by the time we get to game time. We'll sit back and wait. Maybe UConn at a plus 110 will be enticing to some bettors to drive this money line price down, but Illinois is going to be the side for me. UConn, I don't want to say they don't belong here because I think Hurley's done a tremendous job and they have been absolutely brilliant in every single one of these games. The adjustments he's made throughout have been fantastic. But on the surface, we'll look at this and say, how can a team whose main driver on offense, Terrace Reed, a front court player like that hasn't been able to shoot the ball over the course of this tournament, really have a shelf life that is going to last as long as it has? I mean, these performances from deep for UConn, and maybe they're just going to appear out of nowhere, but you're talking about 5 of 25, 8 of 24, 5 of 23 in 3 of the 4 games. They did go 9 of 21 against Michigan State, finally had a good shooting game, but it's not like this isn't in their DNA. Haven't really been a tremendous three-point shooting team for the season, shooting 34% from beyond the arc, taking just barely over 40% of their attempts from deep. We know that they're better than what they've shown in these 3 games, so maybe that just wakes up here in a Final Four match. But I do think that Illinois, the edge they have in terms of their shooting, the ability to generate offense from the perimeter as well, I like Illinois here. Want to sit back and wait, though. We'll see what we get, but haven't really seen any big movements. And I do think we'll probably get some of that UConn movement by the time we get closer to Saturday between these two. This other one, though, I think we're probably stuck, are we not? Michigan, Arizona. Michigan, a 1.5-point favorite, total of 157.5. I think it's fair to say that Michigan is just a slightly better team than Arizona, given the body of work and what some of the metrics would say. But we'll focus on that bottom number if you're looking up at VSiN.com here. Arizona has been somewhat undervalued throughout this tournament and throughout the year. Obviously, a better ATS record. And look, the power rating on Michigan is through the roof. So there's going to be parts of that are factored into it. But Arizona has, I think, not been properly rated by the betting market throughout the entire year. We have a point of evidence on that. And we've seen it through the NCAA tournament as well. In some spots, market moving against them a little bit. And, of course, failing spectacularly. I've said this since the beginning of the year, not to curry favor with our boss who went to the school either, but Arizona's been the pick for me for this entire season, and there's no reason that I have seen over the last couple of games to come off of that. Arizona's backcourt is tremendous. You've got the lead guy there at point guard that's a little bit older. Braden Burries, our leading scorer, is a deadly threat that I don't think Michigan has many options for, and his ability to find his shot has been absolutely tremendous. They've got the athletic size up front, and Koa Pete's been very good, of course, in a stat sheet stuffer for them, too. We'll get to most outstanding player maybe a little bit later. Arizona's got 2 guys I think you can really look at. Koa Pete, I mentioned this to Mitch. If he gave you like a 14-7-4 type of game and a win over Michigan, I don't think it would be crazy shocking for him to see that, and, of course, for him to take a lead heading into the national championship should they win this game. But obviously, Burries is going to be up there as well. Illinois with a lot of different options to win the award, too. I think there's probably only one for Michigan. We can talk about that coming up in the next hour. But, folks, you guys want security. You guys want something you can rely on. Founded in 2011, the Sharp Plays just completed another dominant run, including a 2025 campaign that saw bankrolls double. 15 straight years of winning, and it's all documented. Records and logs posted publicly at sharpplays.com for full performance auditing, something that separates the Sharp Plays from most of the betting industry. When the Sharp Plays moves, sportsbooks take notice. Advanced AI tools and trusted insider intelligence, identifying price value before the numbers shift. Respected, watched, feared. Start winning with them at sharpplays.com. All right. Our guy, my boy, Adam Burke, he's going to join us next, managing editor up at the website of VSiN.com. He'll be with us to discuss a lot. We have to get to the NCAA tournament, where these games might move, maybe some angles for the crown if he's got them as well. And, of course, Major League Baseball, full slate today. And what have we seen through the first 5 days or so of the season? We'll discuss it next here on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Very excited. Not because my fantasy team sucks and the baseball season's already in the tank, but don't worry. I don't think my team name is entirely appropriate, but I won't say it just in case. But my team will survive, as will I. I'm very excited because Adam Burke, managing editor at VSiN.com, is nice enough to still swing by, even though he is planning a trip out of our fair state. So he's a little busy, but making some time for us today in the usual couple of spots that we have with him. Adam, very good to see you. How are you feeling? I would assume the joy for you is off the charts after last night. We got to watch your Cleveland Guardians go toe-to-toe with the Los Angeles Dodgers and snag a win out there in L.A.
Well, we got to watch is a little bit misleading because, everything's blacked out here on MLB.TV. So that's not a whole lot of fun for me. All the California games plus the games in Arizona are blacked out. So I didn't get to see it, but I was happy to be following along with it. And look, based on the early season schedule that they have, this is just tread water. This is like don't get buried kind of time. And so far, so good for them. They've actually, they're not hitting. They're still finding ways to win, which is what they've done the last 2 seasons.
I will ask your hardcore Cleveland Guardians fandom, if you will, because I actually brought this up to Derek Carty yesterday. We saw a small cup of coffee from Messick last year over 39 2/3. It was pretty good. Yesterday was pretty good as well. And the thing that I had brought up to Carty was, the command seems to be much better. In the minors, it was a little bit of an issue for him. Not anything glaring, but still, he was walking more guys. Last year in the majors, it was really down. Doesn't walk a guy yesterday. What's our expectation for Messick? Because I feel like he's one of those dudes that might give your team a shot. And like if you're betting day to day, I think you might circle some of these Messick starts. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those left-handed pitchability guys, right? Got a pretty deep arsenal, throws several different pitches, really good command of a changeup, which if you're a lefty, you could throw a changeup. I mean, it's just such a valuable pitch for you because it neutralizes that platoon split with righties having a lot more difficulty against you. And to be able to throw it for strikes, be able to throw it out of the zone to get chases, he's a really, really impressive prospect here so far. We'll see if he's able to, continue that because when you don't throw super hard, there's a lot less margin for error. But these pitchability lefties, I mean, historically, they've always had some kind of, ability to stick around at the big league level and get outs. So the other thing about him, too, is that, in the minor leagues, like the low minors, he actually had a pretty high strikeout rate, too, because he could put the ball wherever he wanted to. If he's able to add a little bit more swing and miss at the big league level, that gives him the opportunity to sustain what he's doing. But, I mean, a 6-pitch arsenal, again, with a changeup as one of your best pitches, like that's going to play, no matter what the run environment looks like.
All right, so we'll ask the open-ended question. Any big takeaways here in the first 5 days or so of the MLB season for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few, right? I mean, we've been a 3 true outcomes league here so far. Outside of the Tampa Bay Rays, who have like 1 million singles this season, a lot of strikeouts, a lot of walks, a lot of home runs. That's pretty much what it's been here early on, which is not particularly surprising, right? I mean, everyone's just trying to get into the flow of the season. Everyone's trying to get their timing down, whether it's pitchers trying to get their mechanics down or hitters just trying to get their timing down, their swing mechanisms down, all that kind of thing. So really not that surprising at this point. I will say that bullpens, relievers seem like they're having a really, really hard time throwing strikes. There's a lot of very high walk rates from the bullpens out there. So that's something that's a little bit scary because obviously you'd like to bet unders with the colder weather early on in the season, especially in the Midwest and along the East Coast. But the bullpens are just creating a lot of their own problems right now. So it's been tough. You may have an under bet that's looking pretty good for a while. And then all of a sudden, there's a 4-alarm fire on the mound when the relievers come in. So that's been something that's tripped me up a couple of times from more of a side standpoint. But right now, relievers are seemingly struggling quite a bit to find home plate.
Yeah. By the way, the great state of baseball as it is right now, as you know, my oldest son is playing baseball right now. It's his second season. Today in the car, he told me he wanted to work on his uppercut swing. And I was like, all right, here we go, buddy. You're part of the problem. But either way, this is going to be the real deal. All right, Adam Burke with us again, managing editor up at VSiN.com, going over the early goings, get some of the best bets he's got up on the article as well at VSiN.com with some of the plays for today. Some specific teams I think that are worth asking about here in the early going. We asked about your Cleveland Guardians. Let's go into the Central here. They are on top of the division right now. They're 3-2. The Tigers sitting at even through 4 games. The Kansas City Royals. So we got to see our first game out there. Wind, very windy yesterday. A short 3-1 score. They end up getting the win here. But I'll ask you this now that we're in the throes of the season. You brought this up in your write-up for the preview for the Royals. We've talked about it a lot. Is there a way to manifest or bet on some of the changes at the park? Yesterday, the wind was blowing out. It was like 16 miles an hour. That total was 10, and it didn't even get close. Has the market already adjusted for that? Do you think that was a little bit more weather? How should we approach some of these home games for Kansas City?
Yeah, I think the market has already probably adjusted to it. I mean, anytime you get some sort of actual physical alteration to the ballpark with what they did, bringing the fences in down both lines and kind of smoothing some things out in the power alleys, it's going to be accounted for. There's no doubt about that. The thing about it is, though, I mean, Kansas City, while they did this in part because of guys like Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione and Bobby Witt, like the rest of the guys don't really hit for a lot of power on this team. Mm-hmm. Salvador Perez will run into some mistakes every now and then, but Vinny Pasquantino's a guy who looked like a pretty promising power bat, then had the shoulder injury, and then kind of really hasn't found his power stroke completely, since coming back from that. So I think we're probably going to overrate it a little bit early on in the season because this is an offense that's not really performing very well right now. As the season goes along, they might get better. But the thing about the Royals is they also tailored their pitching staff to be very big on home run suppression. So, Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, Cole Reagans, Chris Bubich, these guys, like, they don't allow a lot of home runs. So maybe it's a thing that benefits the Royals offense more than it does the opposition offense. But I do think, if we're going to see totals of 10 in April, like, this thing is already priced in and probably priced in too much.
Yeah. Worth pointing out, all of the runs scored via home run yesterday, but all of the balls would have reached out anyway at the old dimensions. So nothing from the new dimensions there. All right, let's talk about some best bets. One of the games that you have here, and it's also one of the pitchers, and I like the way that you put it here. I think the way you phrase it in your article is that you're investing in or buying stock in Kodai Senga. What do you make of his start here against the St. Louis Cardinals? And zoom out a little bit more. He was in the range of 100-1 to win the National League Cy Young. Could we have a dark horse for that here in Senga?
Certainly possible, right? I mean, he looks healthy through spring training, and that's about all you can ask for with a guy who, has had some injury problems as a big leaguer. But look, there's not a ton of stuff you can take away from spring training. There's a handful of different things, right? Pitch usage changes, velocity upticks, stuff like that. Well, we got both of those out of Kodai Senga here this spring, where the velo was up. Didn't throw his forkball a ton, that ghost fork that induces so many swings and misses, but probably didn't really want to, because it's a pretty tough pitch on the hand, tough pitch on the wrist. Didn't want to overextend himself too much here. So as a result, got to work more on his slider, which his slider is a swing and miss pitch too. So I think this is going to be a really good season for Senga. The Mets offense, obviously, we know that they're loaded for bear. They got a ton of really good hitters in that group. Andre Pallant is a guy for the Cardinals that pitches to a lot of contact. It's mostly ground ball contact, but he walks guys, doesn't miss bats. Just not a guy that I like really in any way, shape, or form. This is a spot where I played the run line on the Mets here, -1.5, slight plus money price. I'm much more inclined to play a run line on a road team because I know they're going to bat 9 times as opposed to a home team that might only hit 8 times and lose an opportunity to score runs. So I think it's a good spot for that with the Mets. Again, this Cardinals team, not many people liked coming into the season. I still don't like them all that much. Pallant's a guy that I don't think he can keep up with Senga. The Cardinals bullpen does not strike anybody out, and they have a high walk rate. They're one of the teams I was talking about just a little bit ago. So I think the Mets have advantages in really all 3 facets of the game here: the bullpen, the starter, and the lineup. So I took the run line -1.5 at a small plus money price.
Another bet you have here, German Marquez. He is allowed to pitch for other teams, it turns out, in his career. Now out here for the San Diego Padres, small dog at home against Logan Webb and the San Francisco Giants. Maybe we can answer this. We'll talk about Webb maybe on the other side, but you've got something on German Marquez, and I really like this. So what do you got?
Yeah, so look, I don't think that people really realize that, when you pitch at Coors Field, obviously it's very difficult to pitch in Denver. But when you go on the road, there's a phenomenon called the Coors Field effect, and it happens to hitters too. But with pitchers, you're not really using all of your pitches at home. You're not really getting as much of a feel for them. They're doing things on the road that they don't do at home. They're moving more, they're doing things that are a little bit more unpredictable. And it can be really hard to command your pitches, even on the road when you play for the Rockies. Also, the Rockies have had one of the smallest advanced scouting and scouting departments in all of Major League Baseball for the last several years. That includes really the decade that German Marquez was there. Now he's with the Padres, right? So obviously an enormous ballpark upgrade going from Coors Field to Petco Park. But also he's with Ruben Niebla, who was a long-time minor league roving instructor, pitching coach, whatever, in the Indians/Guardians organization. So he's a guy who gets it. He understands pitching very well, had a big hand in a lot of the starters that the Guardians and Indians have been able to put together over the last decade. Marquez was throwing his curveball much more effectively in the spring. Velo was up a little bit too. I think he's just going to be a much more confident pitcher being away from Coors Field. So I laddered Marquez's strikeouts all the way up to 7+, which is better than 10-1 at DraftKings for tonight.
Free picks backed by real analysis. That's Just Win Bets, baby. Mathematical models and AI-driven best bets across NFL, college hoops, NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, and more, plus a live weekend preview every Friday. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on X, justwinbetsbaby.com. More Adam on the other side.
Watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, welcome back in. It is was going to say a numbers game. It is not. It is money moves. This is what happens when I'm trying to do stuff. I should probably be paying attention to looking at you fine folks in the camera. But what I'm trying to do is tailor our boy Adam Burke here on the strikeout props for German Marquez. So with that, we welcome back in on the Progressive Guest Line Adam Burke, who is with us at his usual slots here, getting ready for a trip out of town. So we'll get that. I'll ask our audience again at me, JVT. I just posted it on Twitter. I am heading to the Final Four for Radio Row on Thursday and Friday. I have to do my job, and we'll be working and toiling until the late hours of the evening out there. But still, would like any recommendations. So if you got anything, restaurants or otherwise, at me, JVT, send them my way, and I will try to check out whatever I can while I am out there. A couple of other baseball things before we get to college basketball, because I am selfish and I'm in the baseball mood. You and I know, you know this. I like baseball a ton, and I'm an Angels fan. Let's start there. Soriano's getting the start today again. Really good showing against the Houston Astros. My man touched 100 a couple of times. Knuckle curve looked pretty good. Strikeout numbers were solid. I've always thought that he had the stuff. Maybe out in Chicago, it's probably not the best way to back him, but did you see any of what he had against the Astros, and do you think that maybe he's a guy worth backing here? And you only got to go first five, because this Angels defense and that bullpen have been abysmal. Yesterday was an absolute nightmare, but kind of isolating it to Soriano. It's a strong Cubs lineup, but I really like what he brings to the table. Cubs right now about $1.43 favorite here with Taillon getting the start.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that you need to look at with the Angels in general. And the first one is Mike Maddox is their pitching coach, right? I mean, this is a guy who's been around a very, very long time. Some refer to him as a pitching guru. Soriano throwing more fastballs this season, getting more chases in that first start than he typically does. And even if they're not going to be swings and misses, when you throw that hard, if you're getting guys to chase out of the zone, they're not going to make solid contact. And this is a guy that, while he is an extreme ground ball guy, gave up a lot of hard hit ground balls. So if you're going to do that, you need to have a good infield defense behind you. And that really hasn't been a thing for the Angels for a while. I mean, they're, kind of improving. They're kind of focusing more on that side of the game. But, Soriano's a guy that's going to allow a lot of hard contact because he throws so damn hard. But now seeing more four-seam fastballs, fewer sinkers, probably looking at, trying to increase the swing and miss for him, get some more strikeouts. We'll see. How it goes today with a pretty tough lineup. But, these are the things I'm kind of looking for early on in the season. A lot of pitch usage changes. His velo's up on the four-seamer too. Like, are there ways that I can leverage that into making a bet? And even if I'm not going to do it today, this is something I've picked up on for Soriano. Maybe I kind of hope he only has 3 strikeouts today. And then maybe with a lineup that swings and misses more in his next start, I can go out there and then play it at what I think is a pretty reasonable number. So I'm definitely thinking that Soriano is going to induce more swing and miss as this season goes along. And that's probably going to help him, with stranding runners. Last year, left on base percentage, just 67.8%, led to a 4.26 ERA while his peripherals were better. He's a guy with some helium, I think, especially with Maddox's tutelage.
What do you make your boy Bybee tonight against the Dodgers?
Well, I mean, coming off of, he's a guy that he always gives up the answer runs, right? He never has a shutdown inning when his offense scores for him. I don't know if it's from sitting too long or if he just gets kind of too caught up in the moment or what. He's a pretty emotional guy. But coming off of that last start where he left with some shoulder soreness and some shoulder tightness, that's never a good thing to hear early on in the season. They checked them out. Everything came back fine. But still, when you're thinking about the fact that you have something going on with your shoulder or your elbow, it just doesn't feel right. And it's this early on in the season, like, you may hold back a little bit. You may not go max effort. And you do that against the Dodgers lineup. Yeah, they're going to take advantage of it. So I don't like Bybee in this start tonight at all.
Our boy Matt Humans threw out there with our friends on By the Books, Shohei Ohtani to an NL Cy Young. Do you think he's going to pitch? Is he going to pitch enough? I mean, I think he's good enough, but he's going to pitch enough to upend Paul Skeens?
No, I don't think so. I just... Because, look, they're going to try to, protect him as much as they possibly can. I mean, remember, This is a guy who's signed through 2033. I mean, this is a guy that you want for the long term. You want for the long haul. Obviously, as a designated hitter and just as a hitter in general, like, he can carry a lot of value for you. But also, I mean, you gave him the massive contract that you did because he's a legitimate two-way player. I don't see him, he's not going to have 166 innings like he did in 2022, probably not even 132 like he had in 2023. We're probably looking at 80 to 90, maybe 100 at most. If he's dominant and has like a moment, right? Somehow throws a perfect game or something like that, then maybe. But I can't see it. I don't think that they're going to overextend him or anybody else in this rotation as the season goes along.
Yep. Adam Burke with us again, VSiN.com. He's actually got quite a few more best bets up in the article and a lot of different stuff up there on the website. So go check it out. Don't want to ruin it all. VSIN.com. Sign up for the newsletter as well. It's free. So if you want to dabble in, if you're listening to us for the first time, make sure you check that out, as well as all the other things we have to offer up on the website. Before we transition over to college basketball, you're a very good salesman of our website. Anything coming up that people should be aware about?
Yes, so we're going to start our Masters coverage this week. Wes Reynolds is going to have his player profiles done by the end of the week, so we'll be able to have those up there. But we're getting a lot of content from Daily Racing Form right now, our friends over at DRF, and there are 3 Road to the Kentucky Derby prep races this weekend: the Bluegrass, the Santa Anita Derby, and then also the Wood Memorial. And they're going to be sending over content for that. Not to mention Ed Sehan, Mike Somich, going to be covering those as well, and Mike doing a great job at the VSiN at the Track podcast also. We're going to be really ramping up our horse coverage here, with obviously these 3 big prep races, one more next week, and then as we head into the Triple Crown period. So really looking forward to that, just as an example of how we cover it all over at VSiN.com.
All right, check it out, VSIN.com. Final Four is around the corner. UConn, Illinois. Have you any thoughts here, as Illinois is about a 2-point favorite against these Huskies that just won't die?
So I'm really, really excited to see Dan Hurley's head explode in this game, because Illinois is number 1 in the country in free throw rate defense. They've only had 24 free throw attempts against in the 4 games of this tournament. 14 of them were by Iowa. They only had 10 free throw attempts against in their first 3 games. UConn's a team that doesn't get to the line, and they don't really force the issue a ton, it feels like, on offense. I'm ready to watch Dan Hurley's head explode. I really, truly am, because that could be a thing in this game based on the statistical profile for both teams. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because you're going to be there in Indianapolis. You've got this being played in a football stadium. Illinois shoots a 3 about 50% of the time. They're one of the best defenses in the nation at keeping teams from getting to the rim. UConn's going to have to shoot 3s. Do you feel like there's really something to playing in this big of a venue and having to take so many long jump shots?
I talked about this with Mitch on the podcast last night. It'll be out a little bit later today. I mean, there's obviously something, I think, to that. I also do think that this is a very skilled jump shooting team that takes as many 3s for a reason. And they do have good shot creators. Stojakovic is going to create his look among some others. This is a group that I think I would trust in a venue like this to be able to do it. And I do think their volume helps them, Adam. If you're not going to shoot the ball well, I think if you're Arizona, that's tough, because you've only taken 30% of your attempts from 3. If you have a bad night, that's brutal. But if you're Illinois and you're painting by numbers, I think that does help you out in a venue like this.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point. And that's the thing that I kind of look at in this game, and why I do like Illinois, is that Illinois is fine with playing that style of game, right? They, again, almost half their shot attempts are 3s. They're 15th in the nation in 3-point rate. They're okay with doing that. UConn is kind of more balanced, where they kind of take shots from, all areas on the floor. They want to get to the rim. They get to the rim about 39% of the time. Yeah, they take a 3 about 40% of the time, but this is not a team that wants to shoot 30 or 35 3s in this game. But Illinois, because of their size on the interior, may force them to do that. And when you add in an unfamiliar setting and a deep backdrop and the sight lines and all that kind of thing, I just think Illinois is kind of better equipped for the type of game that I expect to see here.
Yeah, last 90 seconds. It's like the Super Bowl. It's Michigan, it's Arizona. People are calling it the actual national championship game. Any thought here? 1.5-point spread.
Yeah, this does feel like the national championship game to me, but you mentioned it already. I mean, Arizona's 3-point rate's 26.4%, third lowest in the nation. Michigan does not let you get to the rim. They are so good at packing it in there on the interior and forcing teams to take a lot of outside jump shots, which Arizona has no interest in doing. The 4 most prominent shooters for Michigan in terms of attempts from 3 all shot 37.2% or better. Arizona doesn't have that, and I think that's going to be a big problem for them in this game. Also, they played Arkansas and they played Purdue, 2 of the worst power conference teams in this field in 2-point percentage defense. Michigan is 3rd in the country in 2-point percentage defense. Arizona, I think, is going to have a lot of problems scoring in this game. And in an up-tempo game where, if you're not efficient on offense and the other team could be, that's going to be very hard for you. Arizona's a good team, good defensive team. I do not think this is a good matchup for them. I like Michigan in this game, and I do think that the winner of this game ultimately does win it all.
Very strong, very strong. Adam Burke again at Skating Tripods, VSiN.com. Check out the work, the best bet articles, and more. Adam, good to talk to you, buddy. Safe trip. We'll talk again soon.
Have a good one, man.
Thank you, sir. If you've got a group chat full of hot takes, Cut was built for you. Cut is a social betting platform that lets you bet directly against your friends and other users on basically anything. Sports, politics, when will Jaden Ivey post another Instagram Live, and more. You can get a 15% deposit bonus on your first deposit when you use promo code VSiN. Head to cut.com, KUTT.com, or download in the App Store and use the promo code VSiN.